Every day, you're working hard towards the same goal: your career, your studies, your fitness, becoming a better version of yourself. You might feel like you're doing everything you can, putting in a lot of time and energy. But still, it feels like you're not really breaking through. You've been at it for months, but it seems like there's no real breakthrough. You look back and feel like you're no different from months ago. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it, despite all the effort, there's no real change? Are there small, almost invisible gaps that prevent you from truly leaping forward? You've worked so hard, yet you still seem stuck. Could it be that the problem isn't your effort, but something deeper that you've overlooked? And then, you begin to realize, those tiny improvements are the key to everything. You may have heard a successful person say, a 1% improvement can lead to monumental change. You might be thinking, isn't that just an empty motivational cliché? But what if I told you that the 1% rule actually holds the power to change everything? Why do we constantly chase big breakthroughs, but ignore the small, incremental improvements that make all the difference? You might ask, why would a 1% change have such a significant impact? Is this really just a theory, or is it a philosophical way of living? If you've ever felt lost on the road to continuous improvement, or have been impatient with your slow progress, then you've already stepped into a deep question that you probably never really thought about. Are we misled by society's obsession with quick success and neglecting the power of gradual improvement? These questions are at the core of what we'll explore today. Why does modern society emphasize overnight success and rapid breakthroughs, while ignoring the power of incremental progress? Can 1% improvement really change our destiny? Do you realize that true breakthroughs don't come from sudden, dramatic shifts, but from the small, consistent efforts you make every single day? If the 1% rule is real, how should you view the tiny yet solid progress you make each day? You may have started to doubt, can the fantasy of quick success really bring lasting fulfillment? In modern society, we are constantly told that success must be fast, and results must come quickly. Yet, the true philosophical and psychological truth is the opposite. Sustained small improvements are the key to changing your destiny. Let's look at this from a psychological perspective. Have you ever experienced a time when you decided to make a change, like starting a workout routine, breaking a bad habit, or learning a new skill? You might have been excited to plan out your daily goals, but the initial passion quickly fades, and the change you promised yourself ends abruptly after a few days or weeks. Have you ever wondered, why, despite my motivation, do I still fail to stick with it? Psychologists have pointed out that the human brain is naturally inclined to seek instant gratification. This is because, from an evolutionary standpoint, immediate rewards were crucial for survival. However, this psychological mechanism, while helping us deal with immediate crises, is not suited for long-term tasks and goals. Modern society constantly reinforces this need for instant gratification, from the immediate feedback of social media to the quick rewards of consumer culture. Every click and like strengthens our brain's craving for instant results. This explains why so many people, despite having strong goals and motivation, still struggle to persevere. You want a healthy body but can't stop indulging in junk food that seems so tempting. You want to learn a language, but you constantly choose entertainment over consistent practice. It's these instant temptations that cause you to give up at the most crucial moments. So, how does this relate to the 1% rule? A 1% improvement seems insignificant, almost too small to notice. People often believe that change must be a dramatic breakthrough to prove their effort and value. But in reality, it is these seemingly tiny changes that, when accumulated over time, result in a transformative leap. This gradual improvement reflects your true commitment to long-term goals, not succumbing to instant gratification. Philosophically, Nietzsche once said, "Become who you are." This doesn't mean an instant, superhuman change, but rather a continuous process of self-overcoming. Nietzsche believed that human growth is an ongoing process, shedding unnecessary parts from the self over time. Every small improvement is a step closer to the better version of you. Schopenhauer, in his philosophy of will, proposed that the world is essentially made of will, and this will is the force that drives us forward, pushing us toward constant effort. No matter how small the progress, if it comes from the heart, it reflects the will guiding us to higher realms. It is this dedication to long-term goals that enables us to transform our lives, one small change at a time. Can you feel it now? It's these small, incremental advances that make up the true trajectory of personal growth. Can you sense that the majority of success standards society promotes aren't truly applicable to personal achievement? This is the philosophy of progress that we've long overlooked. You only need to improve by 1% each day, accumulate it little by little, and eventually, you will break through what seemed like insurmountable barriers. You may have already realized that small progress is not just a visible change, it has far-reaching, invisible consequences on the trajectory of your life. Those 1% tiny improvements are fundamentally transforming your mindset, emotions, and behaviors. And these invisible consequences not only shape your personal fate, but they also quietly alter the way you interact with the world and others. Imagine this: you continue making 1% progress every day, and a few months later, when you look back, it seems like every area of your life has seen a subtle shift: your health, work efficiency, relationships, even your attitude towards life. But this is not an overnight, dramatic change. It is the result of gradually adopting a new lifestyle, a new way of thinking, and even a new belief system. It is in these invisible, incremental changes that you begin to become more efficient, disciplined, and even confident. Psychologists have pointed out that our behaviors are often driven by unconscious habits. Every move we make is often the result of deeply ingrained thinking and behavior patterns accumulated over time. So, when you start improving by 1% every day, this seemingly insignificant change is subtly rewiring the neural structures in your brain. Every time you make a small positive choice, your brain's reward system gets activated, creating positive feedback. This feedback gradually strengthens your self-control and drive, forming healthier, more productive habits. And this invisible neural feedback and behavioral accumulation is the real reason why you start to see change in yourself. You may not realize that these small improvements are silently reshaping your self-perception and emotional reactions. You begin to trust yourself more, see problems from a more positive perspective, and become willing to try things you once feared. It is these unseen changes that help you build a stronger, more mature self. However, just as these small improvements can have profound, invisible effects, their absence is also silently shaping your fate. When you ignore the power of 1% improvement, choosing to give up or avoid, each act of self-discipline erodes your trust in yourself and your ability to move forward. Every small procrastination reinforces the belief that, "I can't do it." Over time, these tiny acts of giving up will slowly cause you to lose direction, motivation, and ultimately, fall into an endless vicious cycle. This vicious cycle is known in psychology as cognitive bias. When you repeatedly forego those tiny improvements, your brain starts to automatically process these failures and gradually turns them into your self-judgment standard. You stop seeing the value in each small progress and instead only focus on failures and avoidance. This leads you not only to miss opportunities for change, but also to slowly create an unbreakable mental prison within yourself. You might ask, why are these invisible consequences so dangerous? Because they accumulate quietly, without your awareness, until one day, they become your inescapable reality. You find yourself increasingly fearful of the future, accustomed to avoiding problems, and ultimately trapped in a self-imposed limit. And the root of all of this is those tiny, overlooked improvements. Just like the 1% rule, their impact cannot be immediately noticed, but they deeply shape the direction of your life. You must realize that change is not just in the achievements you can see, but in those invisible, gradual influences. When you choose a small improvement every day, you are not just changing your actions, you are fundamentally altering your attitude toward life, your belief in the future, and even your perception of yourself. What you don't realize is that this daily accumulation of small steps ultimately shapes your new reality in life. You may have already realized that change doesn't come from sudden, dramatic shifts, but from those small, consistent improvements. And this, perhaps, is the truth you've long ignored. You've been seeking quick, visible transformations, but haven't realized that true breakthroughs are hidden within your daily, incremental efforts. So, how can you break this cage and truly achieve sustained self-transformation? It's not a simple answer, but rather a process of commitment, awareness, and action. This process isn't about some magical rule or secret, but about a deep understanding of yourself and the correct mindset towards progress. The first thing you need to change is your definition of progress. We often underestimate the importance of 1%, while idolizing the quick, dramatic success. Modern society constantly promotes the idea that success must happen quickly, making us believe that achievement is measured by the speed and scale of breakthroughs. You might have been striving for large-scale changes, but every time you fail dramatically, you end up back at square one, losing motivation. The key is, can you separate success from instant explosion and truly understand that success is never immediate but is made up of continuous small progress? Nietzsche's idea of becoming who you are doesn't mean an overnight superhuman transformation but is about gradual self-overcoming. Each small improvement is a step towards the better version of you. Next, you must break free from the self-imposed limitations of your mindset. People often fall into the trap of thinking, "I've done enough, I can't do any more." This sounds reasonable, but deep down, it's rooted in fear of change. You're afraid of failure, of not being able to handle more responsibility, of being exposed for being imperfect. But if you can realize that true failure isn't in being unable to change, but in stagnation, you'll have already made your first step towards breakthrough. Gradually accepting that failure is a natural part of progress, you'll stop feeling anxious about every small setback, instead seeing them as necessary steps towards your goal. Once you stop fearing failure, and accept your imperfections during the change process, you'll realize that 1% of progress is already having a profound effect on your life. The ultimate truth, the shocking insight that will change your life. If you can break through these mental barriers, you will discover a completely new truth. True freedom comes from accepting and embracing the process of continuous improvement. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals, but rather, learning to find fulfillment in the process, finding value in each small step, realizing that you are not someone who can change overnight, but someone who, through every small failure and forward move, is gradually transcending. You'll discover that 1% progress has not only changed your perspective on life, but also your approach to everything. What once seemed impossible, those little steps, is now your source of strength. These small improvements are your way of breaking through the limitations that once held you back. You begin to understand that success isn't some ultimate, sudden state, it's a continuous process. This process, though seemingly mundane and small, will accumulate into a force that allows you to face all of life's challenges, leading you to true freedom. When you look back, you'll be astonished at how much has changed. These changes weren't caused by sudden bursts of energy, but by your commitment to daily improvement. 1% progress has already changed your life, making you a more mature, confident, and empowered person, stepping into a future full of possibility. You finally realize, 1% progress has already transformed your life. It has turned you into a stronger, more confident individual, and with this growing force, you'll move toward an even greater future.